There we go. All right, I'm going to record it. That way we'll be able to post it online. So you all can review it anytime as well. So you can always go back to it. So what we are going to start off with, hi, Brock. What we are going to start off with today is with two teams. We are going to play some Jeopardy and see what you already know about accommodations and modifications. So let's just do you four, and then Ted, you want to join this group over here? Okay. So we're going to have two teams and starting. So pick a number between 1 and 10. Go. 7, okay. 3. Right on the money. Okay, so you are the first ones. What do you pick? And you do not have to phrase it in the form of a question. I find that very dumb. Okay, if you've ever watched Jeopardy, very annoying. Okay. All right, so what do we want? Over here, sorry, let me kind of push this up here. We have accommodations, types of accommodations, modifications, accommodation or modification question mark, and general knowledge. Let's go with accommodations for 200. True or false? With an accommodation, the student with a disability does exactly the same work as his or her peers under the same conditions. False. Okay, let's see. Oh, there we go. What is false? With an accommodation, the student does exactly the same work as his or her peers using special teaching methods. So it will not be exactly the same the exact same conditions, but it will be the exact same assignment. See the difference there? Okay, so team 1, you have got 200 points. Continue, escape. All right. Team 2. What? Ooh, okay, big. True or false? If the modified expectations are based on the regular grade curriculum with changes to the number and or complexity of the expectations, the notation mod for modified expectations does not need to be added after the grade. True. True. This is false. If the modified expectations are based on the regular grade curriculum with changes to the number and or complexity of the expectations, we do have to add mod after the grade because there was a substantial modification to the assignment. Okay. Oops, I forgot to give you, no, you didn't get any points. You failed. You failed. All right. What do you think? Types of accommodations for 200. Okay. Allowing students with learning disabilities to demonstrate understanding of learning outcomes in a variety of ways, such as visual and oral presentations. I don't know what we're looking for here.
I think a term.
Let's.
This is the definition for what?
Is that okay? So types of accommodations, allowing students with learning disabilities to demonstrate understanding of learning outcomes in a variety of ways, such as visual and oral presentations. I don't know what we're looking for here. Let's see what we're looking for. Assessment accommodation. Okay. All right. We're going to not give any points for that. I'm only going to do a couple more because I want to make sure that I have enough time for the deal anyway. So nobody's going to win. This is just all in fun, right? Okay, which category?
Accommodation or modification for 400.
For 400. All right. A student with hearing loss using an FM system is an assistive hearing device. I'm guessing we're looking for true or false.
As
A student with hearing loss using an I should have previewed this a little bit more in advance.
Accommodation or modification, which is-
Oh, there we go. Okay, sorry, I apologize. So is it an accommodation or a modification to use an assistive hearing device? It is an accommodation. Congratulations. I like this category. I'm gonna make you choose this category. Okay, congratulations. You're choosing this category, team. So that was team 2 and you got 400. Did I click that already?
Yeah.
Yes, I did. Okay. Right. Okay, a student with dyslexia using Google Read and Write for completing her writing tasks. Is this an accommodation or modification, team 1? I agree. It is an accommodation. Very well done. Okay, so team 1, you got that point. 200. Assisting a student with ASD, that would be autism spectrum disorder, in developing his academic and social skills through peer tutoring. Is this an accommodation or a modification, team 2?
Accommodation.
I agree with you. It is an accommodation. Okay. 300. A grade 3 student completing half of the grade 3 expectations in each of the 5 strands. Accommodation or modification? Team 1. Modification is correct. Okay, modification is a substantial change to the curriculum. Okay, that was team 1. Oh my gosh, we are tied at 600. This is exciting. All right, let's do 500. If everybody gets it right, everybody ties, and you get nothing but bragging rights. Okay. A grade 6 student preparing and delivering an oral presentation of 10 sentences in length instead of 15. Accommodation or modification? I totally disagree with this. That's interesting. Okay, this is great. That's totally interesting. Okay. Preparing and delivering an oral presentation. Hello. How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. All right. So that is a perfect example of how these things can be viewed completely different depending upon who is talking for accommodations and modifications. So this is a great example of making sure that we are working closely with our special educators and we're not trying to rely on our own devices, especially since what is considered to be a modification for one student may be an accommodation for another, depending upon their individualized needs. So actually, I'm kind of thrilled that that just happened. So let me go back to our presentation here. All right, so if you don't know who I am, sorry, I can close this. My name is Dr. Bailey Koch. I am an expert, we want to call it that, in special education, in providing accommodations and modifications, in providing co-teaching methods, and so on and so forth. So I love talking about this stuff. It is my passion for sure. So I'm super excited to show you. What I have provided you are a couple of very, very simple accommodations that I actually provide to every single person in my class. And in that way, it is a differentiation method as opposed to an accommodation. If we use differentiation, if we use universal design, we actually end up changing the amount of work that is required to provide accommodations for students, because we're already providing different ways of learning to every single student in the classroom. You reduce your workload by using differentiation methods. And these are 2 very simple examples. So if I am going to stand up in front of the class and talk at you in lecture, give me something to help me pay attention. This is going to help a student with an attention disorder who struggles with following along. Take a look, fill in the blank notes, and then give them a reward if they are able to follow along and complete them. There's nothing wrong with rewards. I absolutely love them. They call it bribery, so be it. Okay, sometimes we have to bribe our students. It is what it is. Okay, this is very, very effective for students who struggle with attention. It is also very effective for students who struggle with reading. There are so many different things that we can do. So I say provide these for everybody in your class, and you just took out around 40% of students with disabilities. I shouldn't say you took them out, but you helped them. Okay, so this is table of contents for what I'm going to talk about today. What's the difference? And then I'm going to give you some easily implemented accommodations like I just gave you in here. And then I'm going to go over the 6 types of co-teaching and the 6 reasons for that. That'll kind of be a little bit quicker at the end. And then I did put down there at the bottom, please feel free to utilize fill in the blank notes for this presentation, and you can access them there. You can access this presentation because I sent it out earlier via announcements. So, and it's listed on the Canvas page. So if you are somebody who likes to follow along online at the same time as this, you have access to this exact same presentation that I do, okay? Oh, look, I just provided another accommodation. How hard was that? Not, right? Okay, so accommodations for versus modifications. An accommodation is literally just an alteration of the environment, of the assignment, or the equipment that allows the student to access the same content as his or her peers. Keywords, it is the same content, okay? This happens in both general and special education. Ted, do you make accommodations every single day? Exactly, okay? We do it all the time. Every single person, whether we're a special educator or a general educator. Did you fill in the blanks on your note sheet? Found that information? Okay, all right, and guess what I just did? I just helped you to be able to pay attention by saying, did you fill in what you needed to get from that sheet? So if there was a student who was spacing out thinking about the peanut butter and jelly sandwich you just made in another class, you're going to help them be able to pay attention there. Okay, a modification is a change in what is being taught or expected of the student. This is not the same level of work required of the student. So basically that one example that they gave with writing 10 sentences instead of 15, if I am able to tell that the student understands how to write an effective paragraph in 10 sentences as opposed to 15, that's an accommodation. Do you see the difference there? Okay, if I'm totally changing up the assignment, that's going to be a modification. So that's where I disagreed with the Jeopardy game there. And I know it can be fuzzy. So when you have questions, I'm not saying if you have questions, I'm saying when you have questions, because you will, go talk to your friendly special educators because we are thrilled to work with you. Just don't say, hey, can you accommodate this assignment? No, but I will teach you how to do it so that you can do it for every single student. Do you see the difference in working with as opposed to just expecting that they're going to do your job? It is your job to provide accommodations to your students. Simple as that. Okay. Now, modifications are very, very, very special to special education. If a student is receiving modifications, then likely they are on a very specialized curriculum. Oftentimes, the students who are receiving modifications are able to receive services and education up until the age of 21 because we are on what's called a modified curriculum or an alternate degree plan. Okay, so we can provide services to students up until the age of 21 if they're on one of those plans, meaning maybe they have a more severe intellectual disability. Maybe they're nonverbal with autism, things along those lines. Okay, but there are exceptions to the rule. For an example, if a student is diagnosed with cancer, okay, and they do not need an IEP for cancer, right? We do not require special education services for that very specific of a purpose. However, it is very possible that this student is going to be spending their entire curriculum in the hospital trying to work. That is a modification. That decision would come along with special education just because we're there to help in that situation. And that would come with general education and administration to be able to say that a student is able to pass the requirements of, let's say, the 8th grade curriculum due to a medical emergency situation. Okay, so do you see the difference there between kind of accommodations and modifications and when we may have exceptions to the rule? Okay, for example, I once had a student who was a 7th grader at the time. She ended up contracting a infection in her nose. She lived in a very, very difficult home life and did not have access to clean anything where she lived. That infection in her nose traveled up into her brain. She ended up having to have brain surgery. A large part of her skull had to be removed and kept off for an extended period of time. meaning it was not safe to be in an environment where she could contract any type of illness or where she could possibly fall, even though she was wearing a helmet. So in that case, she was on a very modified curriculum. It had nothing to do with special education, but we were the ones who kept track of the modified curriculum for her because we are the experts in that area. Okay, so again, you are not on an island when it comes to helping in these types of things. Okay, we are there to help you. Okay, so this is just how I explain this. This is my own quote. Accommodations do not lower expectations for what students learn. They just help them access that learning. Okay, I always like to explain, let's imagine that we have $2 bills hanging from the ceiling. Okay, we have one student who's 7'1" and one student who's 4'10". And they're standing underneath these same $2 bills hanging from the ceiling. And I say, okay, the first one who gets to those dollar bills gets to keep both of them. How fair is that? Oh, it's totally fair, right? I mean, it's completely the 4'10" student's fault that she was born 4'10". How dare she? Okay, so if I am giving the 7'1" student every ability to be able to access that dollar bill, and I'm just going to give him both of the dollar bills because he got there first, is that fair? So why is it any different with the learning in your classroom? If you're only providing one way of giving that content, of delivering that content, you're only providing it one way, then you are giving one type of learner access to all of the material and you are ignoring everybody else in your class. Okay, so accommodations help you to be able to help those students access that learning. Simple as that. Give the 4'10" student a chair. Was that a modification or an accommodation? Accommodation. We're just helping her stand up a little taller so that she can access the dollar bill. A chair is an accommodation. Simple as that. Okay. Oh, P.S. Special education is a service, not a place. Okay, if students access accommodations, don't say, oh, you have an IEP, that's wonderful, I'm going to send you down to the resource room. No. Keep the student in your classroom, do your job. If you need help, ask me. Fair enough? Okay, I might be passionate about that. All right, so who benefits from inclusion? Inclusion is having students with disabilities in the same place as students without disabilities. And the answer is everyone. So let's take a little poll. Will you have students with disabilities in your classrooms? Everybody go like this. Yes, you 100% will. What are the most common disabilities that you think you will see?
ADHD.
Absolutely. Any type of attention disorder, very, very common and within our classrooms. That's pretty typical. Okay, ADD, ADHD, very common. Okay, what else? Autism is actually pretty common. Yes, it can be overdiagnosed because there are a lot of similarities between ADHD and autism, especially for high ability autism, but it's really not our decision to determine whether or not the student was misdiagnosed, right? So we may have some autism in there, absolutely. Most likely in your classes, it would be more of a high functioning autism, which means that we would really lack in social skills more than a lower functioning autism, which would, could contain a lot more behaviors, nonverbal, things like that. There's a big spectrum of autism, but yes, you will have autism in your classroom. What else?
Reading, B1.
Absolutely. So we have a category that's called specific learning disability, and then there are 8 categories underneath that. One of them is reading comprehension. Another one is math calculation. So I know that you've had students with math, specific learning disabilities in math before, correct? Okay, so math calculation. What are the other ones? Drawing a blank. There's like 8 of them underneath specific learning disability. SLD is the most common disability that you will see within your classroom because there are so many subsections of it. Okay, SLD in reading is not the same as dyslexia, but have you heard of dyslexia? That's another common disability that we may see. Okay, what is the role of special education in providing accommodations? So if we're all in a school and you're the business teacher and you're the PE teacher and you're the English teacher, okay, like we're all in one school and I'm a special education teacher, what is my role?
teachers with modifications for the students.
Exactly. My role is to help you to help our students. These are shared students, which means that they're doubly supported. So if you don't know how to accommodate the curriculum in order to keep that student in your classroom, all you have to do is come to me and I'm going to help you do it. If I'm really nice, I may even accommodate lessons for you, but I will tell you right now, I don't have time. Because I'm also in charge of all of the IEP paperwork. I'm teaching classes myself, and I'm trying to keep my head above water just like you are. Right? Okay, so my job is to help you. That is the goal. And have we heard of Universal Design for Learning? I think I presented on UDL one time, didn't I? In here? Yeah, okay. So Universal Design for Learning is a way that we can provide accommodations without providing accommodations. Okay, I'll give you a couple examples of that. So here are some easily implemented accommodations. One, multiple forms of representation. Okay, I'm literally using Universal Design for Learning right now. I have presented this material in multiple ways. I am talking about it. I have provided you with a Canvas link to follow along on this exact same presentation if you would like to use that method. I am recording this so that you can access it later. I am also putting it up directly in front of you. That is 4 different ways to access this presentation right here. Okay, then provide multiple ways for the students to engage in the content. Again, I'm talking to you right now. I have provided you ways to help stay involved in the content by giving you different ways to take notes. Okay, that's a form of engagement. Is that helping you to not fall asleep right now? It's so simple, right? That took me like 10 minutes. All I did was follow along with the PowerPoint that I had already done. I highlighted important words and I pulled them out and put lines there. How hard was that? Not. And chances are you're going to be teaching the same thing year after year. You're going to be adjusting, but can you use this the next year after you've done it the first? Absolutely. Okay, don't overcomplicate. Other ways that we're providing engagement, we're having conversations as we talk. This is not just me talking at you, right? I'm trying to involve you in the conversation. Okay, and then provide multiple ways for students to express their learning, which is action and expression. Different ways that the students can actually interact with it. Again, a lot of these same things that I'm doing can actually apply to all 3 categories. Again, don't overcomplicate it. You're showing your learning by this. All that I have to do at the end of the class is pick this up. And I can see that Kenny followed along in the entire thing. Congratulations, Kenny. You got a 100% for participation today. And I'm going to put it in the grade book. Because why wouldn't I? My students should be celebrated for those formative assessments just as much as a 100-point summative assessment at the end, right? Hey, do some grade boosters in there and don't make the entire lesson about the end assessment that's thousands of points. You just invoke so much anxiety in your students that you're probably not getting an accurate measure of learning anyway. Okay, do you see the difference there? Okay. And then there are some links in here that you can actually click on and you can learn even more about Universal Design for Learning, because I could teach an entire class on UDL and I just talked about it for about 3 minutes. Okay, so go into this presentation that I give you access to via announcements and Secondary Educators Club website, and you can absolutely learn more there. Okay, so this is, all right, I don't have, what time is it? 26. Okay, we're doing good. All right. So for students who struggle with attention, these are 3 very simple accommodations that we can provide. Around 14% of your students will struggle with paying attention. So obviously we're going to want to have some of these, right? 1, provide an outline of the lesson, which I basically did in the form of the fill-in notes right there, right? Okay. Record your lectures. I'm doing that right now. So if one of you is having a bad day, I don't know what happened. Maybe your dog got run over last night and you dragged your, so that's probably mine, sorry. You dragged your biscuits here into class because you don't like missing class because it causes more anxiety. But are you in here, in your head, are you present in my class? If your dog just died, no, you're not present. And I fully understand that. So I'm going to give you a chance to try and follow along and help out here. But if you cannot be in that moment, I'm going to record this and post it later. And later on tonight, when you're in the right headspace, you can go back to it and fill that in. And all you have to say is, Dr. Koch, I'm really sorry, my dog died. I tried really hard to follow along, but I couldn't finish it. And I'm gonna say, oh, I hate this for you. Finish it when you can, as long as you have it turned in by Friday, you're totally fine. Because Friday is before we have the summative assessment. So I know that the student is getting the information before I'm ready to assess their understanding of it. Is that hard? And then Kenny and I just made a major connection in there because I understand. And he just earned a ton of respect from me. And that's going to change behaviors within my entire classroom. Okay. And then fewer items per page. Do you see how big the writing is on this? It's very large, because if students are struggling with paying attention, there is a lot less to worry about when you see there's only this many I have, and then oh, I have a whole page done. Holy moly, that's really exciting. Turn it. Oh, okay, I can do it. And then I've got 2 pages done. It makes a difference. That's that social emotional connection, okay? All right, so simple, so effective. So those are a few ways that you can change things to make it easier for students who struggle with attention. Okay, the next one, reading accommodations. One, we can use audio recordings. Guys, I hate reading. I have a doctorate, have still never read an assignment. Don't tell my instructors that. I hate it. I do not learn in that way. So I go through it and I review and I highlight, but I do not read word for word. Never have. I don't learn that way. So I don't make my students do it. I tell them read/review this information. But if I'm an English teacher and I'm teaching them how to work on reading comprehension, do they need to read a book? Yeah. But if I'm measuring reading comprehension, can they listen to it rather than read it? Yeah. If I'm measuring how well they read out loud, I get that that's different. So there are different accommodations for that. But if we can listen to a book on tape, even to instructions, okay, totally doesn't matter. Totally the same thing. Let them do it. And let all of them do it. They don't have to have an IEP to do these accommodations. Do you see this? This helps everybody. Okay, fill in the blank notes again. And like I said just a little bit ago, you can also use this as grade boosters to help your students. Okay, especially those who struggle with anxiety when it comes to those end of lesson tests, unit tests. These grade boosters help a lot with that. Oh, and do a designated reader. If you have students who love to read out loud, let them read out loud. If you're going to do that, you can also use peer tutoring. You know, you have students who absolutely hate to read and you have students who love to read, put them together. Let the student who loves to read out loud. And that's going to make that student who hates to read feel so much more comfortable. No big deal. Can you explain to me why it's super important that students read out loud in class? Uh-oh, there's no reason, yet we do it all the time. Okay, so think about what we're doing to students in that way. Okay, and then math or dyscalculia. I can't even say that ever right. I think I did say it right though. Thank you. That is a very common mathematical disability that we will see. One, review first. Don't just hand out that assignment, because in math, concepts build upon each other. So whatever the concept is that you are teaching, review some of those things that you're going to know that student will need ahead of time. It just helps a lot. And again, it's really good for your class too. Reviews can be very easily built into icebreakers, things like that within a math classroom. Okay. Manipulatives. There are so many manipulatives in math curricula. I love it. I love that part of math. I'm so bad at teaching math, but I somewhat understand it, because if I can play with it, I can do pretty well with that. Okay. Now, giving you guys this, keep in mind that, you know, if you're teaching business, are you possibly going to have some calculations within an accounting course? Okay. Are you possibly going to, if you're teaching PE and health, you may have some BMI calculations and things like that. They use numbers, right? A student with math or dyscalculia is going to be affected by that. So these things do apply to every content area at some time. Okay. Highlight keywords and word problems. That's one of the most important things. Word problems tend to be where students struggle the most when it comes to, especially like if they have a reading ability in a math classroom, that can be really, really difficult. So highlighting those keywords can really help them pick out that correct information. And then breaking it down, teaching the students how to self-talk. I have found to be one of the most important one of the most important accommodations I can do for students who struggle with math. Literally teaching them how to write out those steps. We're constantly saying, show your work, show your work, show your work, right? And it's so hard to get them to want to do that. So I have taught them that self-talking through the problem and actually saying it out loud, right, while you write it down is very helpful to get them to actually show their work. It's just a change in wording. And provide step-by-step instructions, unless you are literally assessing whether or not they can do step-by-step instructions. That's different. Do you see the difference there between what you're assessing versus when you can provide accommodations? Okay. Okay. So I want you to have this website. This is my favorite website, understood.org. It was started for parents of individuals with attention disorders, and understood.org has become such an excellent resource of accommodations, of modifications, of wording that everybody can understand. Okay. I do not use any of the wording I learned in my doctorate to talk to any other human ever. That's not right. Nobody understands that. Literally getting your doctorate is playing somebody else's game, and then we don't get to use it hardly at all unless we're researching. When it comes to teaching, we have to use wording that other people can understand, and understood.org does a wonderful job of bringing that down to anybody's level, including my own level, and I have the doctorate. Okay, it's just a really good resource. So I'd love for you to have that. Oops, I went backwards. Okay, now co-teaching. The reason that I put co-teaching in with this presentation is because a lot of times, hopefully, unfortunately, it's not happening as often as we would like because of a lack of personnel, but co-teaching is a way to have two teachers in the classroom and provide more one-on-one or small group instruction. So there are 6 methods that we use in co-teaching. The first one is one teach, one observe, okay? Literally, Dr. Ruffnow is doing co-teaching with me right now. You have no idea that he is, but what he has been doing the entire time is looking around, seeing that everybody is on task, everybody is involved. If there was one of you back there, let's say that Poonam was sitting back there and she's like messing around with a ball or something like that, Dr. Ruffnow is going to be taking data, noticing that she's doing that. He may even get up and go over and kind of sit next to her in order to keep her on track, but mostly he is gathering data on student learning, and it is very helpful and very effective. This is one of the first sources of co-teaching that you will see because it doesn't require a lot of plan time, doesn't require a giant connection between the two educators who are sharing the space. Okay, so that one's a really easy one to use. One teach, one assist can provide more one-on-one attention. That is wonderful. That means I'm up here, I'm the main person teaching, and Dr. Ruffnow is walking around and he is assisting the students, or I'm saying, Dr. Ruffnow, would you grab those materials back there and disperse them to students? That's assisting. There's lots of different ways that a co-teacher could assist. Okay, so that helps to provide more one-on-one attention. The most important part of one teach, one assist is that we don't only provide that extra attention to students with disabilities. Otherwise, we have singled out students with disabilities from their non-disabled peers, and that's exactly what we don't want to do in co-teaching situations. Okay, we want students to not have a clue who have disabilities and who don't. That's the goal, okay? Parallel teaching would literally mean that I am doing this presentation, and in the back of the classroom, Dr. Ruffnow is doing the exact same presentation. We are doing the same thing at the same time, both presenting the same information, but we are doing it in smaller groups because we need to be able to have that smaller group in order to make sure that the student is learning. Students are all learning. Okay, so it just takes down that ratio of students, but we're doing the exact same thing. Did I answer all of the questions in the fill in the blank sheets? I couldn't remember what I put on that one. Okay, the last 3 types of co-teaching are station teaching. This is where we can divide content and students, and then there's smaller groups. So there is less separation between general education and special education in here, We see station teaching a lot in mathematics because maybe one teacher is providing a certain level of, a certain level of lecture on it while the other teacher is working on doing more manipulatives. Okay, maybe we have students who are doing more independent work in one station, and then in the other station, we're doing more group work. So we can use that in any area at all. In an English classroom, it may look like how we're working on writing a paragraph. Maybe in one station, we are providing a certain type of outline, and in another station, we're providing a different type of outline, so that we're allowing students to decide which method do you like to use. Then once they decide which method they like to use, they get to choose which method they use once they actually write that paragraph. Do you see how we're using that to then change how we give different forms of action and expression? Okay, so that would be station teaching. Alternative teaching would be one large group and one small group. That is one that we see much more often used incorrectly. A lot of times I'm seeing that the general education teacher will keep all the students without disabilities in the classroom and will literally take the students with disabilities into the back or into the hallway to provide instruction. No, that's not what it's for. Obviously, that will have to happen sometimes, but we have to use this form of alternate teaching to be able to give every single student extra help if they need more help. And in that way, we're using it correctly. Okay, so that really can be used incorrectly a lot of times. And then team teaching, I literally say it's one brain, two bodies. We are both doing this presentation. We are both feeding off of each other. The other one is saying, oh, you know what? I just remembered this is another thing that we need to hit on that. And we're both walking around the room, keeping students engaged. We're both working with students with and without disabilities. We're doing everything together. This is like the golden egg of co-teaching, but it requires a lot of planning, and you both have to be experts in that content area. I was able to do very effective team teaching. Clearly my job involves a lot of student teaching. I apologize. I was able to do very effective team teaching with an English language arts teacher because that happens to be another content area that I'm very well versed in, and was really able to provide the same level of instruction as this veteran teacher in that content area. Okay, and she was extremely good with special education. So we had the students completely separated. Like you could not completely separate, completely together. You could not tell who was students with disabilities and who were the students without. Right, that would be the holy grail of team teaching. Did I complete all of them in that one too? Hopefully. Yay, perfect. Thank you for the thumbs up. Okay, again, there's more resources. So there are 6 approaches to co-teaching. There's another website for you. So if you access this, you can get that. Somebody give me a time. Time's it?
4:40.
Oh, nice. Okay, fair enough. So don't fear technology. This is one of the things we're constantly being taught to use technology, but then we get into the classroom and a lot of times they're saying, no, it's too easy for students to cheat if they have one-to-one, or it's too easy for students to cheat if they have their phones. Okay, I understand that. But if you are sitting behind your desk the entire time and allowing students to be on their phones, yeah, they're gonna cheat. I would too. Okay, if you are doing your job and you are walking around and you are keeping students engaged, technology is your friend. Okay, for example, let's say within this classroom, I have 3 students who struggle with reading. Okay, just really, and maybe have dyslexia. And so when we're looking at this, even reading the word co-teaching, it just doesn't make sense because those letters get all jumbled and we don't even understand what it says. Okay, so for a student to be able to fill this out, it may be necessary that they need a recording of it or that I'm reading it as I go along. Would that be really hard for me to do? No, this wasn't needed in this class. I can tell that y'all are filling it in just fine, and I know pretty typically what your levels are, so I knew you could fill this out without any problem. Okay, but for a student with a reading disability, one thing that I could do is what I did on Canvas. I posted these notes for you. I posted that note handout for you there that you could access before. You could also access it after. The other thing that I could do is I could post an audio recording of me reading this. If the student goes back through the presentation later, they can literally pause at the presentation. They can pause during each one of these, and they can fill that out effectively by hearing me actually say what it is that we're looking for on this sheet. Okay, if I'm giving them time to fill this out within class, and I have provided that for every single student, any student can access that audio recording, and I allow all of the students to listen to music while they're working on their assignment, how is anybody going to know that the students are accessing that audio recording instead of listening to music? Are they gonna know? Nope. Again, you just made sure that students with disabilities are equal on the same level playing field as anybody who is not. Okay, so provide that accommodation, put it out there for everybody. I guarantee it's not only the students with disabilities who are going to benefit from it. Okay. So again, allow those accommodations for everybody, and then they won't be noticed. Okay, this is one of the most important things. Allow your students to experience success. Okay, I have an activity within one of my classes that I do called Learned Helplessness. Mariana, we just did this. You remember this? Okay, you will here in a second. So I hand out 2 different pieces of paper to different groups. Everybody has, there's only 2 different pieces of paper, but the groups don't have a clue what they have in front of them. There are 3 words that are just mixed up words, jumbled words, okay? And the students are told to unscramble the words. Just start from top to bottom. It's super easy to do, okay? So one of them on one of the pieces of paper says something like tap. And they would unscramble that to what? Maybe pat, okay? The next one says I don't remember what it is, but again, it's an easy one, okay? Then the third one on that list says Cinerama. Okay, they look at that, they have just done the first 2, they kind of mess around and it takes them a little bit, but they're able to get American out of that word, okay? Now, meanwhile, there are other groups in the same classroom that have been given a piece of paper with 3 words on it. The first one is whirl, W-H-I-R-L, and I say, you know, unscramble it, just find the word. Okay, and constantly I'm walking around and I'm saying, guys, this should be easy. You know, this shouldn't be taking this long. So I'm literally making them feel bad on purpose. Whirl does not unscramble to any other word. Okay, so, and I told them, go 1, 2, 3, you know, go in order. Once you get that first one, go on to the second one. So eventually they get frustrated enough that they'll go on to the second one. And again, that word does not unscramble. Okay, there's no other word within that word. So then they get to that third one, and it is the exact same word, Cinerama, that was on the other people's sheet of paper. By the time they get there, they have already given up. They have completely decided there is no way that they are going to get this, so they don't even try. Okay, it is called learned helplessness. I love to frustrate my students in order to tick them off and help them understand how these students can feel when we don't allow them to experience success. Okay, so the other part of that was me walking around saying, this should be easy, guys. Come on. Why is this so difficult? Don't say that stuff. Because for some students, it is difficult. So we give more time if we need more time. We don't make them feel silly for not understanding this. Do y'all remember that now? How did you feel with that? You were in the good group? Okay, it was like, oh, super easy. Were you in the good one?
I was in the other one. Yeah, slapstick. I was like, just the word. It's already a word.
Exactly. Yes, and whirl was the same way. So did you even get to American at the bottom? Nope. See? Okay, so we literally have 2 students who just did this not too long ago, and one was like, I felt great, and the other one was like, I was beyond frustrated. Okay, so that's learned helplessness. We do have to allow our students to experience success. Give them a 100 for this. Do you have any idea how much it means for a student to be able to see a 100 in the grade book? Even if it was for 5 points. Okay, let them experience that success, and it does a lot for their social emotional health. Okay, and right here. Okay, So if you have any questions, my email is kochbj@unk.edu. So I always say that I want you to have my contact information, because just because I'm done or you're done being my student doesn't mean I'm done being your teacher. I'm happy to be a resource for you for as many years as you would like. I just had a student reach out to me today and ask me to be a guest speaker for a camp that he's helping with this summer. You're darn right I'm gonna go do that. Sounds wonderful. And the student graduated 2 years ago. Okay, I love that. That's amazing. That like makes my day, and nothing about my day has been going well. So that was exciting for me. Okay. Did we get the notes filled in? Okay, can you use this as an example for your future classrooms? It's not hard to do, right? It's pretty easy. Health and PE, you're gonna have a lot of those health things. This is really, really effective for that. Okay. All right, any questions? Yeah.
You said earlier, bribery, who cares if they call it that?
Yeah.
How do you feel about when people say that by bribing them, you're not teaching them to be able to do it themselves? How would you respond?
Well, bribery would be different than not teaching them to do it themselves. I mean, I would say that giving them a piece of candy for completing something would be motivational to me. Like, hey, I'm gonna fill in that sheet if you're gonna give me a butterscotch at the end of this. So I look at it as what's gonna be motivational to me. So if I'm providing that every single time a student does an assignment, that would be an issue. Because they have to learn that intrinsic motivation themselves, but that's where helping them experience success comes in. So if they're earning that grade and they get excited for earning that grade, how is that not bribery? Right? Okay, so I say every now and then we need to provide motivation for our students. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If I'm telling them that, you fill this out and you do it well, and you will earn a 100%. I'm not just telling you I'm giving you this. I'm telling them you have to do your part, and then you will be rewarded for that. But really, you guys are doing your part in college right now, and you're going to be rewarded with a degree, right? If we look at it, that's really no different. Did I answer your question? Okay, fair enough. Other questions? Fair enough. That was easy. Okay, well, I'm happy to have this conversation anytime, but that is all that I have for you. So, Kenny, do you have anything?
Our next meeting, 2 weeks, same time, 27th.
Yeah.
Yeah, 27th, that'll be our last meeting for the semester. So we want to do it before dead week. Usually we have a dead week de-stressor, but we're already so stressed during dead week that sometimes it's like hard to let ourselves go do something to de-stress because we're already so stressed, and so it's just another thing on our plate. So we're going to just go ahead and do it the week before. We're going to be talking about review games in the for our last meeting. And so come ready to learn about different ways that you can review in your class, and ways that you can add fun little games for your students to learn some of the content that you're doing. So.
And we'll probably do some of those review games like as part of it. So it's gonna be a fun one, and maybe I can bring some puppy chow or something. I haven't made it in a long time. So give me an excuse. All right. I'd say we're good. Thanks for coming, everybody.